1, 2, 3, 4. Don't be so silly to think you actually have to like yourself or come close to liking everything you do. We push through the days of being remarkably bad or empty. It's unrealistic to think it could be any other way. The two modes of being an artist are those that seek the magic moment, the inspired crosswinds where the gods tap our foreheads with lit up fingers, where the right amount of psychedelics have removed our ego and yet kept us motivated enough to create. Those that light candles and make sure everything is just right before putting pen to paper. And then there's the other ones, the ones that treat creativity like a factory job. They get up every morning and have a stiff cup of coffee and work with and against indifference of an uninspired mind that's already been squeezed for content and has nothing to ride but the habit of creativity. It's what Stephen Pressfield in The War of Art calls the professionals. In our days of algorithms and social media's need of constant content to make a dent in the structure of things, this factory worker approach makes the most sense. It's congruent with the ways of this weird world. To feed the endless machines, must we ourselves become machine-like? I don't know. Personally, I like the factory worker approach because emotions and feelings and signals of inspiration and the lack of it are often lying to us, and because to become a professional or a consistent creator means a lifestyle, at least for me. It means early mornings and avoiding habits of escape and sin where diet and exercise and positive mental habits become important factors in a consistent push for high-level creative output. In short, the ramifications of creating a competitive life in these realms means our lives have to reflect our commitment to some degree. We have to stay engaged, we have to doctor our self-esteem. It pushes us to live up to our potential, which means all the areas of our life must reflect that commitment as well. Our spiritual, mental, psychological, and physical lives will all end up benefiting if our commitment is sincere. It pushes us to become athletic gurus in our daily approach, soldiers on the battlefield of the indifference of this cruel world, modern-day Andy Warhol factory machines where we are always running behind the impossible need to feed that machine, with empty minds reaching into the void for a new way to say an old truth. We simply can't do it with depleted souls or minds ravaged by sin. So in this way, becoming a modern-day content creator is a kind of spiritual journey, pushing us beyond where we thought we could go. Here's a list of some helpful attitudes I've found on my journey. Now remember, this is just my list and what I've found. There are, of course, opposite sides to every coin here, so each of us must find what works for us. There is no final truth when dancing with the mystery that is making stuff or art. So here we go. Action. Number 1 is action is better than inspiration. Inspiration is a mood or a feeling or emotional. Obviously, feeling or being inspired is great and can lead to incredible work. Obviously, being inspired is the ideal, but to be dependent on real inspiration without provoking it for the average person, for the overwhelming majority, means our output will be rather limited. How often do we wake up with a Godhead beaming on the dance floor of genius? And even in those modes, if we are lucky enough to have them, how often does inspired creativity itself let us down with how supposedly great it portended to be, versus daily action, where we may not be feeling it, but we push and provoke and knock like lunatics on inspiration's weird door. My experience is that I almost always come up with something that has the energy of authentic inspiration in it, regardless of how I felt about the process of making it, at least a little bit. Meaning feelings lie, but action tells the truth. We overvalue emotions when the nature of the world is indifference. The sun comes up daily, no matter how we feel about it. Rather than following feelings, let's follow the nature of life. The sun comes up. What's the new message? I don't feel like writing it. Well, write it anyway. It will probably be better than we think. And even if it's not, our habit of seeking it every day means luck will be on our side more than if we don't knock on inspiration's door, regardless of how we feel about it. Number 2, judgment is for the birds. Perfectionism is always the enemy, and we don't have to love everything we do. A decent attempt is all we are looking for here, not the Mona Lisa or the statue of David. Inspiration is kind of like prejudgment of the potential of a creative possibility. We decide before we make something if it's going to be any good or not, when we couldn't possibly know based on the lies of our emotions. Similarly, after we make something, we can tend towards being overtly harsh or critical about the quality of it. This is where having a healthy amount of indifference can help, and how actually the modern day call of constant output is actually a healthy attitude regarding creativity in general. Our thoughts and feelings are less accurate guides than the habit of action and discipline. If we become factory-like in our approach, the chances that genius will accidentally seep through the cracks into the public sphere become exponentially higher. All of the struggle with self-esteem and whatever we make becomes difficult to see beyond the reflection of how we feel about ourselves. This too is an exercise in ignoring how we feel and submitting our output to a schedule. How many times have we heard the story of the band's big hit being the last-minute throwaway song no one in the band thought was very good at all? I thought it was rubbish. Yes, I thought it was rubbish too. Then we put it out and it became a banger. Too many to count. This isn't about putting out junk as much as it's about not limiting ourselves to be guided by the topsy-turvy landscape of our feelings. Number 3, we are more capable than we give ourselves credit for. We can do more than we think. We can push ourselves much further than we know. Our limitations are also just lies we tell ourselves. But the truth is, we have the ability to change and affect our lives and the lives of others. We can write great books, we can start an influential channel, we can make a great album, we can schedule our days for boundless output and input, we can rise to a level of greatness beyond what we know or give ourselves credit for. We have become used to viewing ourselves through the false glasses of limitation and lack, and so our emotions stop us from pursuing what is possible, and our judgment comes like a hammer around the coffin of our dreams. So the more we take ourselves out of the equation and motivate ourselves through daily action to give other people an insight and pathway to their own creative freedom, the more purpose and happiness in our missions we will find, and the less precious we will become. If we put others in our view beyond ourselves, we are more likely to share whatever light we have, because people are lost in dark landscapes of traps and limitations. We are less concerned about the lack of perfection in our message and more concerned with the morsels of light that are undoubtedly contained within. We become more concerned with giving than receiving, and this leads to overcoming the ego and giving more rather than less. Fear and perfectionism are signs of an ego run amok, even though people often confuse massive output as a sign of ego run amok. I think the opposite is more often true. Thinking of others, we are simply more likely to give. When we are more open to giving, we are also more open to receiving. Our minds seek inspiration rather than wait for it. We go to bed jotting down ideas of things we can write about in the morning, like planting a garden of inspiration rather than waiting for it. We provoke it, and we are more likely to wake up inspired from the beating of a generous heart. And the good thing is even if and when we wake up flatlined on the level of inspiration, we know we are going to type or sing or push for it anyways, and some fragment of light is likely to show up. But we aren't judging or operating from emotion. We are, after all, a factory. Thanks for watching. Tell me if you liked this video, if you agree. Oops, I almost fell over. Are you a factory? Do you want to become one? Or are you waiting for inspiration? Let us know in the comments below. Bye.